tal? Les habla Raf Perales y quiero invitarlos a que me acompañen en este programa. La Constitución americana también provee protecciones muy importantes cuando lo confronta un policía. Tener un juicio por jurado es uno de los derechos más importantes en nuestra sociedad, que es parte integral de nuestra Constitución. Solo tienen que informarse para proteger sus derechos. Hello and welcome to Leyes, Cotodianas, where we talk about the laws that affect you every day. And Ralph Perales. And today we're going to be discussing the financial crisis in this country, in particular the foreclosure problem that we're having. And with us is Sue Hunt, who's the Housing Counseling Manager with the Consumer Credit Counseling Services of Atlanta. Welcome, Sue.
Thanks very much for having us.
And you folks are very busy these days.
We are.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second. And Rick Alembic is joining us again, an attorney in Decatur, Georgia. And you practice a lot of in the areas of real estate, foreclosures, all this.
Yes, sir, and we're very busy.
I bet you are too. So, Sue, let me start with you. Tell us about the numbers that you've seen of people having not just a foreclosure problem, but in general.
Right. Well, at CCCS, we really are a financial emergency room for people. We've been here in Atlanta since 1964, and last year was our busiest year. We saw nearly 600,000 consumers who were having difficulty with their finances. And maybe more in line with the foreclosure issue, just 2 years ago, we spoke to about 6,000 people in 1 year who were having difficulties making their mortgage. Last year, on average, we spoke to 6,000 people a month about mortgage problems.
6,000 a month, so that's over 72, 73,000
yes,
people.
Yes, it was
in
a record-breaking year, and we expect this year to see continued growth.
Okay. Rick, how about you? What are you seeing from your point of view, the legal side?
From the legal side, we are seeing obviously a higher volume. One of the biggest problems we're seeing now, though, is an inability to do workouts with banks that no longer exist. One of the biggest problems we're having is trying to negotiate workouts of mortgage issues with banks that have either failed or banks whose loans are not clear. It's not clear who the loans belong to anymore.
Right, so that's interesting. So you don't know who to talk to, basically.
A lot of times that's the situation. And the legislature has attempted to address this in Georgia by requiring notices to include addresses and phone numbers of people to talk to in notices, but those aren't very helpful.
But if you don't know who to talk to, who's going to foreclose?
Well, what happens is a law firm will be contacted by its client, somebody who theoretically has ownership of what we call a security deed, the deed to the home. But a lot of times these are institutional investors who actually own not necessarily the deed itself, but a pool or a collection of these security deeds, of these loans.
And in Georgia, the one that owns the promissory note, so to speak, is the one that has the right to foreclose.
Exactly.
Okay.
A lot of times the biggest problems that I'm seeing as an attorney is going through the records and finding transfers, formal transfers of the security deeds and the loans. That
are properly recorded.
Exactly.
At the courthouse.
More often than not, the paperwork is really not that good. It's not that effective.
Okay. All righty. Now, Sue, there is a program called the HOPE program. It's an 800 number that people can call, and we'll give that number out in a second. But tell us about what the HOPE program is.
Well, the HOPE program is a national program that gives homeowners an 800 number that they can call if they're having trouble making their mortgage payments. And when they call that number, they're immediately routed to one of about 15 to 20 nonprofit housing counseling agencies throughout the United States that are staffed 24/7 to help people get advice and guidance, and even do conference calls and get in touch with their lenders so that they can work out the problem with their mortgage.
And I take it that Consumer Credit Counseling Services is one of those 15?
We are one of the largest participants in that HOPE hotline. Last month, we took 22,000 phone calls from consumers who called the HOPE hotline.
Okay, and you said that you're open 24/7.
Right. We are open every day, every holiday, every minute of the day.
Okay. Now, what can you really do with this HOPE program? What can a consumer, somebody who's having problems making the mortgage, expect?
Most of the people that call us are just afraid and don't know what to do next. And what our counselors do best is they help homeowners get a realistic idea of what their situation is. We spend at least an hour with every homeowner. We take them through their budget. We look at the reasons that they fell behind on their mortgage. And then we talk with them about who their lender is. And we give them realistic advice about what the next step is for them to take. And in a lot of cases, we'll help the homeowner initiate that first conversation that they've been afraid to make with their lender to help the ball start rolling on some way to stay in their home.
Okay. Rick, are you finding now people sort of overwhelmed and they can't make their mortgage payment, so they just throw their hands up in the air and either walk away or from the house, or they're trying to basically walk away from the problem?
Well, the people who come to us are not those types of, don't fit that profile necessarily. But the fact is there are quite a few who are simply just walking away from their homes. And that's actually contributing to the overall problem, because the banks are foreclosing on homes that may have been abandoned, may have been stripped, maybe are no longer rented. And so these homes are affecting the values of the properties around them and the overall market. So that's a problem affecting everybody.
Well, if somebody's having a problem making their mortgage payment, they're not going to be able to afford a lawyer. So
that's a very good point. The type of people, the profile of the clients we have are either builders, developers, people who are the borrowers from banks who are doing this, who are building or developing property. We do have occasional homeowners who will contact us because, well, first of all, we don't do bankruptcy, but I think we do a pretty good job of trying to see if the client is potentially a candidate for bankruptcy. But sometimes the lenders have simply not treated the client fairly, have not treated them legally, and there is something short of bankruptcy that we might be able to accomplish for the client. And a lot of times it's something that may have happened after the foreclosure. The client may not have gotten notice of the foreclosure, or the way the foreclosure was conducted was wrong. And so there's ways of going to court to reverse foreclosures and to challenge those.
Do you mind telling me what do you charge for a consultation, just for somebody who wants to know their options?
Our consultations are $200,
Okay.
and more often than not, at the end of that consultation, the client will have a pretty good picture of his or her options, whether bankruptcy is an option or we can do something for them.
Same question for you. When people call Consumer Credit Council services, I mean, are these services for free, or what's going on?
Our services are always free to the consumer who calls us. They're also absolutely confidential. We never release information unless we have the homeowner's specific consent to do that. You talked earlier about, do people just walk away from their homes? And it's interesting that about 50% of the people whose homes are foreclosed on have never spoken to their attorney or to a credit counseling agency or anyone else for help. And that's where we think we add some real value. It is because we're free and we're confidential, we can help people realize that there are options that they have other than walking away.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if you have to pay a lawyer $200,
Right.
I mean, when you consider the investment that you have in a home and how much it's worth, not only financially, but to a person, I mean, I think it's probably well worth spending that kind of money. Now, what can a person expect when they call CCCS as far as help? Do you help negotiate a reduced rate, interest rate?
It depends on the homeowner's situation and what their financial profile looks like. We always do a budget, so we see how much money they have available in their house. And once we find out who their lender is, in many cases we have a pretty good idea of what kind of options that lender is going to offer. And the key at that point is putting the homeowner in touch with the right person at that servicing operation to make something happen. What we see a lot of is, if the finances are right, homeowners can get a loan modification or some help.
Okay, well, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back in 1 minute.